What's the most painful thing a teacher ever said to you? When I was in 8th grade, I had an English teacher named Mr. Davis. He was one of those teacher students whispered about in the hallway. Strict, hard to impress, never smiled unless it was sarcastic. He was known for grading harshly and having impossibly high standards. Most kids dreaded his class, but for me it was different. I loved writing, always had. I filled notebooks with stories no one ever read. Fantasy adventures, emotional slice-of-life scenes, characters that lived in my head for years. Writing made me feel like I mattered. It was the one thing I was good at, the one place where I felt completely myself. And I wanted so badly for someone to see that, especially Mr. Davis. When he assigned us a creative writing project, I was beyond excited. Finally, something that wasn't an essay on symbolism or a book report. We had to write a short story, any topic, any genre. I wrote about a girl who discovered she could hear people's thoughts only to realize she was absorbing their pain. It was personal, even if it didn't seem like it on the surface. I stayed up late editing, rewriting, second-guessing every word. I turned it in with shaky hands but high hopes. When he handed the stories back, mine had a big red C- at the top. No notes, no feedback, just that single crushing mark. After class, I stayed behind and walked up to his desk, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mr. Davis, could I ask what I did wrong on my story?" He looked up at me with this blank, tired expression and said, "Some people just aren't meant to be writers. You should probably focus on something more practical." Then he turned back to his papers like I wasn't even standing there. I remember nodding, thanking him, and walking out in a daze. I didn't cry until I got home. And when I did, I cried for hours. It wasn't just a bad grade. It was someone telling me the thing I loved most was a waste of time, that I didn't have it, that I never would. I packed up every notebook I had, stuffed them in a box, and shoved it to the back of my closet. I didn't write again for almost 2 years. Every time I picked up a pen, I'd hear his voice. "Some people just aren't meant to be writers," and I'd stop. It wasn't until high school in 11th grade that I tried again. Another English teacher read a personal essay I'd written and asked, "Have you ever thought about writing professionally?" That question stayed with me. I didn't answer, but later that night I pulled the box out of my closet. Bit by bit, I started writing again. Fast forward 10 years. I was at a bookstore sitting behind a table stacked with copies of my debut novel, my first book signing. It had just hit the bestseller list the week before, and the line wrapped around the building. I was overwhelmed, thrilled, nervous. I signed books for kids who told me they wanted to be writers, for teachers, for people who said my story reminded them of their own. Then I looked up and froze. Mr. Davis. He looked older, smaller somehow. He was holding a copy of my book. "I didn't recognize your name at first," he said, "but when I read your bio, I remembered you. I didn't know what to say. I was going through a divorce back then," he continued. I was angry. I took it out on my students, especially the promising ones. He slid my book across the table. "Would you mind signing it?" I picked up the pen and paused for a moment. Then I wrote, "To Mr. Davis, thank you for teaching me that the most important voice to listen to is my ditty."